the ruins of ancient Greece have come to symbolize for the world sky-high debt with bailouts, 450 reforms, 4 governments in 8 years, and austerity that's unimaginable in the modern world. But cautiously, and despite repayments due to the Eurozone well past the year 2060, Greeks and Europe are ready to chart a new course after what feels like a never-ending saga.
In 2009, Greece announces its deficits are higher than it had been reporting, forcing the Eurozone and IMF to initiate a first bailout on conditions of reforms that kickstart protests lasting months. Private creditors in 2011 are forced to discount 50% of their Greek debt, which is followed by the first of 4 government changes. In 2012, Greece gets a second bailout and another 2 changes in government that push heavy austerity measures, causing more protests that result in left-wing Syriza forming a government and introducing capital controls. Despite 61% of Greeks voting against reforms in a referendum, Syriza agrees to reform conditions for a third bailout, which are followed, and in 2017, the IMF approves a standby agreement and the European Commission recommends an end to the program. The Eurogroup agrees after heated debates for the program to end on August 20th, 2018.
To exit the bailout, this government has signed up to continuing reforms and some pretty big budget surpluses. Now, to do that in a country with high unemployment means taxes are going to stay high, and that's not attractive to foreign investors who are needed to create growth and those much-needed jobs. So Akistatis set out to see whether domestic businesses like shipping have enough traction to make a difference to everyday Greeks.
Greece still leads the world's shipping industry despite the turmoil of the near decade-long economic crisis. Greek shipowners control over a quarter of the world's crude oil tanker fleet, almost 1 in 4 of the global dry bulk carrier fleet, and just over 15% of the world chemical product tanker fleet. In 2017, shipping commerce increased by almost 17% on the previous year, with an estimated value of more than €9 billion. The figures underlying Greece's shipping sector are truly impressive. Despite Greeks representing only 0.15% of the world's population, the ships that carry 20% of the global seaborne trade are controlled by Greeks. However, the shipping industry, suppliers and Greek society in general are still facing serious problems due to overtaxation.
Όπως και συνολικά η ελληνική κοινωνία αντιμετωπίζουν σοβαρά προβλήματα που σχετίζονται με την υπερφορολόγηση.
The president of the Greek Merchant Marines Engineers Union is not optimistic that the problems created by the crisis will be solved when the bailout programs end.
Is there going to be a withdrawal of all these consequences, the anti-labour laws brought in recent years? The opposite will happen. These laws will continue to be enforced and any kind of growth will be built on the debris of labour rights. So the question is, growth by whom and for whom?
Commerce in the country's largest port has been hit hard by the economic crisis. The trade union leader in Piraeus says in the last 9 years, 1 out of 3 stores in the city has closed.
A business like mine with a net profit of 70 to 75,000 euros, and believe me, there are few with that level, pays taxes between 55 and 65%. Of those 75,000 euros, we have to deduct the rate for taxes. Then we have 30,000 euros. From that, I have to pay another 20,000 euros for insurance because I have an income over 70,000 euros. So after a year of hard work, I'm left with 10,000 out of 70,000 euros, less than 1,000 a month.
Some believe that by the end of August, Greece will have finally sailed out of the troubled waters of the financial crisis. But many others think deep cracks remain in the hull of the Greek economy and that much repair work remains to be done before it becomes seaworthy again.
Everyday Greeks aren't yet feeling the benefits of the increase in foreign investments either over the past 2 years. So I met Deputy Prime Minister Yannis Dragasakis to find out when growth would be tangibly felt.
Deputy Prime Minister, what did you bring to show us where Greece is headed now after years of pain?
I brought a small ship for the new journey that we must make as a country now. And I also brought something that for us is a compass. It's our new growth strategy. In reality, Greece for the first time has a national growth strategy which describes aims and means, what we want to do and how we'll do it and where we want to go. Even in the event that something does not go well in the markets, we have strong reserves, we have strong surpluses. All these factors are enough to inspire confidence.
At the end of the day, growth really comes down to a strategy, a clear, sustainable plan. Do you have one?
We know that in 2021 we will have achieved certain targets in various sectors. We therefore have targets and timeframes, so people can check the government's performance. The second thing we're saying is that we have already institutionalized stability in certain sectors. For example, if a large investment comes to Greece, it will have the same tax regime for 12 years, so nobody can change it. When we talk about investments in Greece, we're talking about reinforcing a dynamic that already exists. With the non-performing loans and banks, the sale of those loans has started, and the restructuring of many companies has also started.
How do you plan to balance the people's needs with the reform agenda that you have?
I would call it how normality returns for citizens. It's a crucial issue. We will reinstate collective bargaining for workers. We will abolish the law that froze the minimum wage. There will be certain procedures to allow an increase in the minimum wage, and this will happen. That's why we're talking about inclusive growth.
So who, at the end of the day, will end up paying? Will it be corporations? Will it be private individuals?
We're in a dialogue with the business world as to which taxes we should reduce. Someone could reduce taxation on profits, you can reduce taxation on investment, you can increase the percentage of write-downs. We've decided that in the first year, 70% of funds will go to reducing taxation and 30% will go to increasing spending.
What are the things that your government is not going to move on?
On salaries, we will create the conditions that will allow workers to seek, through negotiations, the improvement of their income. On pensions, we will avoid further cuts. I say that because reforms were identified in a negative context. Now we're talking about changes, about transformations that will allow people to see positive results.
Deputy Prime Minister, on that note, thank you so very much for joining us. And thank you for joining us on our finale episode of Real Economy. We'll see you soon.